Hello, welcome to another fantasy football tournament series, number 77, and this is the Gold Cup. Countries that are mass producers of the element gold, also known as Aurum on the periodic table of elements. Now, a little bit cheekily named, is that even a word? Cheekily? Cheeky named? Cleverly named for a tournament. Because there is an international competition called the CONCACAF Gold Cup, but this is literally the Gold Cup, as in the top countries that are the most producing in gold, which is among the most valuable elements in the entire world. And what's really convenient is there's a nice spread of representatives here from all six confederations. And this wasn't deliberately. I didn't have to pry and dig anywhere. These are among the top. Like, you look at the top 12, 13 nations, these are the ones that you see here. So I had to do it because it was tempting, and it just fell into place on its own. And the format is a Copa America format, 3 groups of 4. The 2 best teams go through, as well as the two top teams, as well as the 2 best third place sides. And the host nation, as I usually have, is Ghana, who historically is known as the Gold Coast, which was their name prior to becoming an independent nation from Britain in the 1950s. So another very appropriate host, so to speak. And I think they'd be more than capable of hosting such an event with sites such as Accra and Kumasi that have stadiums that would be able to field a small tournament like this. So let's go ahead and jump through the groups. So Group A, we have Ghana, Canada, Peru, and Uzbekistan. Group C, we have Russia, China, Papua New Guinea, and USA. Group C, we have Mexico, South Africa, Indonesia, and Australia. So without further ado, let's get into it. Ghana versus Canada, and Peru versus Uzbekistan. I'm going to go with a thumping 5-1 victory for the Black Stars right out of the gate. I think, tactically speaking, this is a really bad matchup for Canada. I expect them to get outmatched physically throughout the game. And for Ghana, this being the opener, I can see this being a sort of a situation where Ghana grabs 1 or 2 goals early on, and the floodgates open, Canada capitulates, and you get sort of like a situation that Canada had with Haiti when they relented a 2-0 lead, just falling apart completely. It's not a good match for Canada whatsoever, I think. There's just certain teams in the world, guys, that are not good matches for others, and I think Ghana would get a very convincing victory here over Canada. Peru versus Uzbekistan. This kind of game would give me flashes of the playoff between Peru and New Zealand in World Cup qualifying, the first leg of which ended in a 0-0 draw. And I think Uzbekistan is that kind of grinding team that can get a result here, because they don't really play like an Asian side. They play like a second-string Eastern European team, and indeed, Uzbekistan is a former member of the USSR. They gave Australia and Japan all kinds of problems at the Asian Cup, losing out to, at that time, the defending Asian champions only on penalties. Matthew Ryan coming to save the day, but they don't play like a team that Peru would be able to put away convincingly, like a Southeast Asian team that might not have the numbers to make it a more competitive kind of meeting. So I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw here. Peru sometimes has a tendency to play down to their level, their opponent's level, or up. Or up. Moving on to the next group of games, we have Ghana versus Peru and Uzbekistan versus Canada. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw between the host nation and Peru. And between Uzbekistan and Canada, I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory for the White Wolves of Uzbekistan. We have Canada versus Peru and Uzbekistan versus Ghana. 3-0 victory for Peru over Canada. I'm sorry, Canada. I do think you'll exit with 0 points. And a 2-1 victory for Ghana over Uzbekistan. So Ghana wins the group on 7 points. I think home advantage would allow them to pit Peru to that top spot, who finishes on 5 points. Uzbekistan on 4 points. Canada in last with 0. Uzbekistan and Canada out. Ghana and Peru go through. The next group, Russia versus China. I'm already 7 minutes in this video. I need to speed it up. Russia-China, I'm going with a 4-1 victory for Russia. Papua New Guinea versus USA. I'm going to go with a 6-0 victory for the US. Then we have here Russia versus Papua New Guinea, going with an 8-0 victory for Russia. And China versus USA, a 2-0 victory for USA. Then we have China versus Papua New Guinea. USA versus Russia. A 3-1 victory for China over Papua New Guinea, but Papua New Guinea will register a goal. They will get a goal in this tournament. Now, this would be a very politically charged game between the US and Russia. Politics does have a tendency to boil over into sports more often than not. And I could see both of these sides very much so not wanting to lose to each other, and this being a 0-0 draw. Very tense 0-0 draw. Russia wins the group on 7 points, with a better goal difference than the US, who also finishes on 7 points. China's on a distant third on 3 points. Papua New Guinea in last on 0 points. So China and Papua New Guinea are out. Russia, USA go through. Final group, Mexico versus South Africa. And Indonesia versus Australia. A 2-0 victory for Mexico. A 5-0 victory for Australia. Mexico versus Indonesia. This is going to go in the double digits here. 10-0 for Mexico. And Australia versus South Africa, a blockbuster 3-3 draw. Candidate for best game of the tournament, a 3-3 draw. Then we have, what is it? South Africa versus Indonesia. And Australia versus Mexico. A 4-0 victory for South Africa. And between Australia and Mexico, I'm going to say only a 1-0 victory for Mexico. Just 1-0. Mexico wins the group. 9 points. Australia second on 4 points, with the tiebreaker over South Africa being by virtue of number of goals scored. I think they'll have 8 goals to South Africa's 7, who also finishes on 4 points, and Indonesia way down in the basement on 0 points. So South Africa, Uzbekistan, South Africa would not necessarily be out. So we have to look at the third place teams now. Mexico and Australia go through. So the third place teams are Uzbekistan on 4 points, China on 3 points, South Africa on 4 points. If I said earlier that they were eliminated, I'm mistaken. Uzbekistan and South Africa go through because they each have 4 points. China on 3 points finishes as the worst third place team, so they are out. Now moving on to the quarterfinals. I have the runner-up of Group A, which is Peru, versus the runner-up of Group C. And this is usually how 12-team tournaments pan out, guys. You usually have two group runners-up meet each other at some point. So Peru versus Australia. And the winner of Group A, Ghana, versus one of the a third-place team. So that would be South Africa. Then would have to be South Africa. Then we have Group B winners, Russia versus Uzbekistan, third place team. And then Mexico. What do you know this? Wow. Mexico versus the U.S. My goodness. So that's the quarterfinals. Get a good look here. Get a good look. All right, let's jump right in. Peru versus Australia. I'm going to go with a 3-2 victory. These two guys for Peru. These guys met in the World Cup. Peru were victorious 2-0. I do think Australia will give them a good run for their money this time around. Australia's finishing was just poor in Russia 2018. They never scored from open play. But I do think they will here, but it'll be a respectable loss. Peru will win this match 3-2, but Australia will take the lead first before Peru turns it around. So Peru over Australia. Ghana versus South Africa. I think this will be a 2-0, a 2-1 victory for the Black Stars. 2-1 victory for Ghana. So Peru and Ghana would meet again in the semifinals. Elsewhere over here, Russia versus Uzbekistan. I'm going with a 3-1 victory for Russia. Mexico versus the USA. Going with a 2-1 victory for Mexico here. I know it pains me to say Mexico are our rivals, but I have to be honest. So here's the semifinals. Peru versus Ghana and Russia versus Mexico. These two teams met each other in the group phase. Peru versus host nation Ghana. That match ended in a 1-1 draw. Here, I believe Peru will emerge victorious 1-0. And Peru will get to the final. Ghana will enter the third-placed match. Russia versus Mexico. This game will go the full distance after a 2-2 draw, and Guillermo Ochoa will make a couple of saves on penalties to send Mexico into the final after a 2-2 draw. So, the third place game is host nation Ghana versus Russia. And my prediction for this is that Russia will win this match by a scoreline of 2-1. Russia will win this match 2-1. I know Ghana's the host, but they did well to get to the semis. Ghana will finish in fourth. Russia will finish in third. The final of the Gold Cup is Peru versus Mexico. And this is hard. This is very difficult. What's funny is that Mexico is currently the CONCACAF Gold Cup champions. They could very well win this tournament as well, the literal Gold Cup. But I'm going to say this game will be a 1-1 draw, and Galese will make some saves on PKs to give Peru their first championship in my fantasy football tournament series. So, Peru wins the Gold Cup. Mexico finishes in second. Yep, Peru wins the tournament. Started off slowly, but they got there in the end. Peru in first, Mexico in second, Russia in third, Ghana in fourth. Leave a comment below, like, subscribe. Hopefully I'll see you soon, God willing. Till then, have a good one, much love, and as always, peace out.